like for me, when I read verses that say lower your gaze and guard the private parts, that's often translated as Muslims should be modest, and I think you use the word modest and chastity. For me, those two words are archaic and it doesn't resonate. Because when I think of chastity, this is my it sounds, and I'm not saying this is correct. When I think about modesty, I generally think about it being a female virtue, when in reality it's a male virtue as well that men should develop to be modest and be chaste. When I think about modesty and chastity, I think about like a woman, and I think about a woman maybe like in the 18th, 17th century, and like you got the chastity belt, and it doesn't really connect. Whereas when I think about or use like terms like sexual discipline, it sounds like something that as a man I can aspire to. It's a quality that I want to possess. But being chaste, again, it just, for me, it just sounds like I said, again, it might be because of the English language. That's why it doesn't really resonate when I hear those words like being modest and being chaste as a man, or it just sounds maybe being shy and demure. But when I think about sexually disciplined, it's like no, someone who yes has sexual desires but restrains it, or has the ability to say no, like the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam in the Quran. What was his story? Obviously, there was different tests he had, but the one of the biggest tests was that he desired a woman, she desired him, but out of fear of Allah, he didn't engage in act. And the Prophet mentions that that's going to be one of the people that is under the shade of Allah is a man who, a beautiful woman of status, wants to sleep with him, but he says no out of fear of Allah. So again, it's when you're reading those stories about, okay, this is a trait or characteristics I want to develop, then I think you can then look at sexual discipline as something that you want to embody in your life. And then another thing I'll just add is just having high standards. That's the last thing I have. If you've got high standards, that you're not just going to be wanting to sleep around with anything and everything, um, you're more likely to develop sexual. I said that's the last thing. The final thing is words by Ibn Abbas, who's obviously a great companion, a scholar. He said that when and it's like, so if you're speaking to people, said if you see a beautiful woman and you're enticed by her, again, that's not your wife, just think about her bad qualities or think about her faults. As in, obviously, when you're enticed by someone, she looks like the best thing ever, and you see all of the beauty, but she's still a human being. If you think about not publicly, not to abuse her or not to, but I'm saying if you think about like either the negative consequences or she's not as desirable as my mind or shaitan making out to be, then she'll you won't really put her in a pedestal because that's an approach I think is a good approach rather than you can say the approach that a number of men have is they have sex with a woman and then they develop or they have what is it called post-nut clarity, then they realize actually I didn't really like her. Why did I do that? Now again, that's a non-Muslim way or non-Islamic way, should I say, because Muslims still engage in casual sex. Not saying that we should, but that's one way that men realize actually after I slept with her, I realized I didn't really like her. Now at that time it's too late because you've committed a sin and there could potential consequence of unwanted pregnancy, STIs, X, Y, and Z. But I like Ibn Abbas's advice where he said that if you see a woman that you're aroused by, you think she's the best thing ever, just think about her bad qualities, kind of thing. Like she's not as perfect as you've made her out to be, or Shaitan's made her out to be, and Allah knows best.